Hello, and welcome to the very first episode, or I guess I should say introduction, of Your Friendly Neighborhood, hosted by Darcy Seven from the Cheesy Pear. This brand new podcast is aimed at introducing you to and telling you the stories of the movers, the makers, and the shakers, the business owners, the creators, and the innovators of your small town. For those of you who don't know, we are signing in from Kingston, Ontario. And like I said, my name is Darcy, and I myself am a small business owner and actually in the beginning stages of opening business number 2. I'm sure we'll get to that. But before that, the idea. I have a deep passion for people and their stories, and this podcast was born out of my genuine curiosity of all of these amazing people right here in Kingston. But also, all of the amazing people I know are creating and risking and failing and succeeding in your own towns. Who are they? What do they do? How did they come up with that awesome business name? Do they have a background in business and marketing? Where do they get their confidence? And how the hell do they juggle it all? Ultimately, what can we learn from this diverse and knowledgeable group of people? Each episode will feature the badass behind the brand, and you can look forward to hearing from your friendly neighborhood baker, your friendly neighborhood lifestyle photographer, your friendly neighborhood candle maker, and truthfully, the list goes on because there is just so much talent in this town. If you have someone you would love to learn a little bit more about, be sure to comment on this episode's Instagram post and I'll see what I can do about getting them in. We'll be blurring the lines of business and personal and getting to know these entrepreneurs a little bit more intimately. Okay, so a little bit of background. Who am I? I have always been a creative. I used to lock myself in the basement and craft and create for hours on end. Whether my art actually turned out or not, I got so much joy from being able to creatively problem solve and come up with new ways of doing things. Actually, one of my favorite childhood memories was this craft camp I used to be a part of. For anyone listening in from Peterborough, Ontario, it was based out of Ashburnham Crafts. My sister and my best friend Kayla and I always participated, and what I loved the most was that each class was a totally different medium. One time was pottery, one time was painting, one time was sewing our own little teddy bears, and one time was card making with rubber stamps. My poor mom used to get so annoyed with me and my range of crafting hobbies and always joke, Darcy, can you not just stick to one kind of craft? Because every birthday or holiday, I was asking for new tools for my new crafting hobby. So fast forward a few years and I moved to Kingston. I started working for the city in the social services division, similar to what I was doing in Peterborough. While Peterborough had a number of students and young employees, I started out here as the youngest by like 10 years or something like that. It took me a little bit, but I did find my groove. And turns out my besties were a handful of middle-aged women who I'm still close with today. Shout out to my girl Ange. These women were also into crafting, specifically the rubber stamp card making, and I was right back into it in no time. But this time, my crafting supplies were on my own dollar, and at 22, I was all about a good deal. So that creative problem solving came back. While my friends would have fancy markers that perfectly smudged, I'd grab my makeup bag and use an eyeliner. While my friends had these puff stickers that allowed their pages to stand out almost like 3D, I'd pile little scrap pieces together and glue them on the front and back. All of this to say that creative line runs deep, and I feel most like myself when I'm getting to create and use my hands in some way, shape, or form. Do you ever look at your hands at the end of the day and think about all they accomplished or what they just made? No, just me? Okay. It was around this time that I started my first small business, Cakes and Cupcakes. It was an accidental business in that I loved baking, specifically decorating what I'd baked, and eventually a few people started asking me to make them things. I had no business plan, no business cards, not even an Instagram page, although this was like 10 years ago. Next up was a wooden sign / woodworking biz called Tree Treasures. I would love to know how many people I end up interviewing started out in wooden sign making. This one was pretty cool to me though. I was really trying to make something legitimate out of it. With an Instagram page and a rubber stamp with my logo, I even shipped a few items across Canada. When I was on my mat leave with my first baby, I started up my third small business called Honey's Dew for mom and baby hair accessories. I had a vision, but let's be honest, my sewing skill set was not where it was at. All of this led to my current business, the Cheesy Pear, Kingston's own charcuterie business. curating custom platters of classic charcuterie, brunch boards, family boards, candy boards, and we're even getting into some merchandise. I plan to do a whole episode on your friendly neighborhood charcuterie girl, telling you all about this venture, how it began, how it grew, how it's going now, but we'll get to that. There you have it. The gist of me, a creative with a love of putting out what I create into this world. It was about a year ago. I was on my way back from an event I host called Coffee, Community, and Content, where like-minded women get together to eat, to snack, to talk about our big scary dreams, our small business struggles, our balancing of life challenges, and a place to get a little content and collaborate with people that you might not have thought to otherwise. Anyways, we were driving back from this event. I was fired up like I always am after being around these people and telling Rav, a local photographer friend of mine, about how I would love to interview small business owners, find out who they are, what makes them, where their passion lies, what inspires them. And this was where the idea of this podcast was born. Now, I need to mention, I'm a single mama of 2 young girls. I was still working full-time for the city at the time. I was a full-time master's student and running the Cheesy Pear. So to say I was on the verge of a burnout was an understatement. I'm sure we could do a whole episode on burnout. And yay me for knowing it wasn't something I could totally take on at that time. But here we are, about 10 months later, with really not much less on my plate. But Joe here from River Sound Studio producing this podcast has been kicking my butt, telling me to just do it. And no, we're not sponsored by Nike yet. So here we are, introducing your friendly neighborhood, hoping that you too have a passion for people and want to know who really is behind these small businesses. We hope you sign in to learn, to laugh, maybe even to cry, to gain inspiration, and to fall in love with these people that make up your community. Now, don't hate me, but our very first guest is going to remain a surprise. Be sure to tune in for the first full episode and let us know what you think. Thank you so much for being here and listening in. XOXO, your friendly neighborhood podcast host.